Hello and welcome to the show. I'm here on the streets of Adelaide to test out some more cars, or in this case, a lorry. This is not a standard one though. This is the Wheelie Truck. I can't remember how many horsepower it's got. It's got many horsepowers. I've used it in a few videos before, and as you can see, when you launch it off the line, it does a pretty damn impressive wheelie, and of course, it is mighty quick in a straight line. The handling does suffer. It does suffer quite badly, I'll be honest. It is not at all an easy vehicle to drive because you have so much speed and they're not very good brakes and an incredibly high centre of mass. So when you turn a corner, it kind of sort of falls over a little bit. Not really ideal, if I'm honest. I mean, that's not a particularly high-speed corner. And as we fire some sparks around, it wasn't a massively high-speed corner. Neither is this. I'm not going massively fast into that corner. It's still enough to topple the truck over. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the old Jelly cars on 4x4 that would just fall over whenever you took a corner. It feels a little bit like that to drive without the incredible suspension maneuvers. The tyre stealing manhole covers were at it again with with the truck. I'd completely forgotten about them. I was much more concerned about stopping and falling over when it came to a corner. I completely forgot to avoid the manhole covers. It wrecked quite a lot of the front end. I got a wheelie in between corners, which is not quite so helpful, really. This thing will bounce around. It's got quite soft suspension, so if you're wheeling and then you're trying to get it back under control and everything, it will bounce around, it will twist around, and in that case I just couldn't get it stopped. It fell over. A little bit further around, I found another corner to have quite a spectacular roll, because again, these are all very low speed crashes. This is not going particularly fast when it's falling over. Like, in between the corners it's very quick, but at the points where I'm crashing, it's not actually that higher speed. Again, this is into the first corner now, getting bounced and falling over. The suspension is quite soft. There's quite a lot of give in this one, so you can have problems. It's very easy to have problems with this truck, and it was really the rolling over that was the big pain. The manhole covers would throw a few curveballs in. I haven't crashed on that one. I haven't had a problem with that one before. After a little while, I just about got the hang of driving this thing. I do like launching this and getting a humongous wheelie. It is quite entertaining. And as I said, in between the corners, this thing is monumentally fast because it's got so much power. You just keep an eye on the speedo. It's by far the quickest vehicle we've had around here for actual straight line speed. The brakes are a problem. Getting it slowed down for the corners is a real problem, and you have to make sure you've got it slowed down for the corners. It is very unspectacular through the corners if you are getting it right, because you can't take any more corner speed than this. Any more and the truck starts falling over. So it's blasting between the corners and then slow, very slow around them, just so that you don't fall over. Even on this one, that is very slow through that corner. I ran a bit wide. I had to because the thing was nearly falling over. It's a tough car to drive. It is a very tough vehicle to drive because of that. Now we're onto a straight bit. I can unleash all of the power and the speed goes climbing up. It's a fast vehicle in a straight line. It's actually quite stable as well in a straight line, which is surprising. We've had a few problems with stability on some of the vehicles, but it is stable enough, and we can just about get away. The advantage of having such a big vehicle, we can scrape the wall a little bit, and we're okay. A little bit of juddering under braking. It doesn't like the really large stops into the hairpin. Only a few more corners to go, but they are quite daunting ones in a truck of this size. It's onto two wheels. Around that one, that's a tough corner because it's quite a fast corner, and this vehicle just can't take corners quickly. You can't carry the corner speed that you want to. Unleash a little bit of power. Don't read too much into the speedo. It does track wheel speed, so if I'm spinning the wheels, it will look as if it's going quicker. But yeah, it's a scary one towards the final corner, and then it's a crawl around the final corner, so he's still wanting to go over, and then flat out towards the finish line. Use all of that acceleration and then jump on the brakes, and then it doesn't stop at all. It's really very tricky to get this thing. I tried wiggling from side to side. It just doesn't slow down at all. The brakes lock up very easily as well. I was trying not to lock the brakes. I can't do anything about it. It is a tough vehicle to drive. Monumentally quick in between the corners, but around them it was a pain. So we move on to our next vehicle. Again, looks like the game's standard D-Series pickup truck, but it isn't. This is a wheelie pickup truck with many, many horsepowers as well. Now, I had hoped, I had a little bit of a problem. I was trying to show you actually doing a wheelie off the line. You have to set up, you have to do a specific sequence to get this thing to go. And I kind of did it. At some point the handbrake came on. I might have tapped the button by accident, so it did a weird launch. You have to have it in neutral, rev the nuts off it, and then change up into first, and that's where you get the best wheelies with this truck. At least that's how I found anyway. On the opening run, that's the closest I've had to a roll off a curb. I mean, the truck was rolling on its own. That one was actually helped over by a curb. That's the first time I think I've done that on this particular circuit. Now this is also very, very quick, lots of power and more stable through the corners. The brakes are not very good. That's sort of 120 miles an hour into the wall. It's a nasty shunt that sees the truck very, very broken. The axle is at a rather strange angle. That's not really the position you want the rear. That's quite smashed. Yeah. It's a better handling car, this. It's a much better handling car than the truck, the previous one, but you do have to be careful because the brakes are made of paper. It just doesn't. It's even worse. It doesn't stop. It is incredibly bad under braking, which means you have to brake a hell of a lot earlier than you are expecting. But it doesn't fall over every time you go around a corner, which is nice. It was nice to have that a little bit more stability. It is quick off the line, as you would imagine. It is phenomenally quick accelerating. We can carry a bit more corner speed than we could with the truck, but we have to brake incredibly early to just about everything. The brakes are some of the worst brakes, I think. It doesn't help that this car is, you're going so much faster into these corners than I have been with anything else. So it's very early onto the brakes. It makes it quite a pain to judge to kind of get this car around the track. You do have to be quite careful, and it's very easy to get carried away in thinking, oh yeah, I can brake later than that, when you just simply can't. On the plus side, manhole covers didn't prove at all a problem with this vehicle. It had absolutely no issues with them when I drove over them, although I tend to now just sort of resort to a line that avoids them just in case when I think about it, onto the back straight. And of course we can get this thing up to some pretty damn quick speeds. Got to remember to brake early. Brake early for this corner up here, because there is no chance we're taking it flat out, and it's a real pain getting slowed down for that corner. Once you get out the other side, of course, you can boot it and pick up some speed, but then you've got to get back on the brakes straight away again for this very tight hairpin. These next couple of corners aren't as daunting with this car. I'm not in fear of it rolling over. I mean, yes, it will go up onto two wheels. In fact, that was about the worst I had it on two wheels. At the higher speed corners, yes, it will go up on two wheels. It's still a lifted truck. You know, they're still pretty well known for rolling over on this game, as I found out on the downhill chaos. So yeah, you've got to be careful with it. But on the most part, it's an easier drive. It's a lot more stable than the truck, as you would expect, really, with this. As we round the final corner, it is a floor it to the line, and again can pick up some serious speed with this. Slamming on the brakes, it still doesn't stop. It's yeah, the brakes are not so good on here. Also, I found out a slightly weird thing with this is if you, provided you braked and didn't touch the steering at all, the front wheels didn't lock. And the minute you touched the steering, that's what all the smoke was coming from. So yeah, it took a little bit getting used to, but quite a tough vehicle to drive, that one. Our third and final vehicle is the Rally Covet. This is four-wheel drive, and it has the overkill turbocharger that makes it very, very quick indeed. I was expecting this to be pretty tough to drive. This car can be quite twitchy. It's a very small vehicle, and when you put this much power in a car this size, traditionally at least, in Beam, it can make it quite difficult to drive. It tends to make them quite twitchy. Into the first corner, I got things a little bit wrong, came out the other side though. We were still just about in one piece. It wasn't as nice and stable as the pickup truck had been, and I get a little bit of a mistake on the exit of the corner, and that's all it takes to spin this car. It requires a lot of finesse. You've got to be very delicate with the steering on this car. Another problem, and I don't know what it is, something about the combination of this car and this track, the Covet doesn't like. Once I step on the brakes, well, in a couple of the very heavy braking zones, it breaks the rear suspension. As you can see at the moment, the rear wheels are pointing at all sorts of wonky angles. They should not be doing that. The suspension has just collapsed under heavy brake. No other car does this, and I can't make the Covet do it elsewhere. It's just a combination of this track and car. Something doesn't quite fit, and the Covet is now quite poorly. As that's quite low and far too much camber. I mean, the bumper is on the floor, basically. I don't know why. It doesn't like it, and if you are on the brakes, sort of heavily on the brakes, that's what'll happen. Makes it difficult to drive. You got to be extra specially careful now with this. Not only is it twitchy, but slowing down can be a problem. I may have slightly turned into a corner a little bit too soon, scraped a wall and broke the steering a little bit. That's all it takes. You can't really drive this car with damage on it because it's so fast, it's so powerful. With damage, it makes it a real pain. I may have slightly forgot about the manhole covers. This one, it wanted all of my car, but it just stopped it dead and spun it around in a circle and tore off some wheels. Yeah, that was my bad on that one. I completely forgot I needed to avoid the manhole cover. Anyway, I did surprisingly get a cleanish run with the Covet. It's a quick car, this one. It's a very, very fast car. You do have to be careful around the corners because it just doesn't have the stability of the larger vehicles. You can see through here, it's wanting to slide and just about keep together. You can hold this car because it's a four-wheel drive version. I wouldn't want to drive a rear-wheel drive Covet with this much power. I think that would be twitchy horribleness to drive. Because it's four-wheel drive, if you do start getting sliding, it's not too bad. You can just about keep it all under control, and it's pretty good through the corners because it's much more reliable than the two vehicles before. I'm not at all worried about this car falling over. I am worried, of course, about the suspension just deciding to collapse at random points. Up until now, things were going okay. And as I say that, you can see the rear wheels are starting to go, and I don't know what causes it as we come down the back straight. I can even with that, I'm not giving up. I am determined. I will do a lap with this car. It's pretty quick coming up towards one of the scariest corners. It's not my normal style of taking a corner, but it got round it and we didn't end up in a wall. So, yeah, well, it'll have to do. Now, I'm quite scared of this particular corner. I know the suspension is not going to like such a heavy stop, and we may get around. It wasn't a particularly conventional way of braking the car. You don't really slide it into a corner like that, ideally. I don't have any choice, though. The rear wheels, the rear axle, it's giving up on me. But I want to make it around the course. I'm trying my best. You can see the rear suspension is doing all sorts of funny things. I've got toe-ins and toe-outs going on with the rear wheels, but there's only one more, well, kind of two more corners to go. It's still sliding. There's plenty of smoke coming off this car now, as it really is getting quite unhappy up towards the final corner. There's another bump. The suspension, the wheels are doing all sorts of crazy angles. I try to boot it towards the finish line. The car is nearly undrivable now as we bounce off the wall and across the line. It was a pain driving this car. I kind of liked the challenge of trying to complete this lap as the car gradually fell apart. It made it interesting to me. I don't know why. Something somewhere just doesn't quite add up with these two. But yeah, I wanted to give the car a go. It's a very, very quick car, and then then to finish it off, the wheel fell off. Yeah, and then the other one as well. I don't know what the hell it is, but I'm glad I crossed the line when I did. Much further, and that would have given up because it's four-wheel drive. It's still going. It probably been quicker just to leave it like this. Not worried about the rear wheels. We'll just skate around on the front ones. I also like how the wheels are still bouncing. There was so much momentum going on. Those wheels were they're still going. They're still bouncing around this particular street circuit. Yeah, it was a little bit crazy with this car here. It was good fun though. I love the challenge of driving a car as it falls apart. It made it interesting. I will say that much. But there we go. All three of the massively overpowered monsters actually made it around the streets of Adelaide. So it is on to the times. And we have a new leader, the Wheelie pickup set a time of 1:51.5, putting over a second quicker than the Ford Capri. Despite its horrendous brakes, that humongous amounts of acceleration in between the corners is enough to put it to the top of our table. The Wheelie Truck, despite its inability to take any corner speed at all, goes into 5th, not far off the World Rally Championship Polo. That's a pretty good time. And the Overkill Covet goes into 6th with a 2:07.1. Considering, I put the asterisk there to say that that was completed with a broken car. Considering for the last few corners that had no rear suspension and they had all sorts of cambers and toes going on that it shouldn't, that's pretty damn quick. That's pretty damn impressive from the Covet. Anyway, that is it for this video, guys. So thank you very much for watching. If you would like to have a go with the mods used in this video, I shall put them all in the description so you can download them and try them yourself. However, until next time, goodbye.